G'day, this is Geek Dad and
Prime Zinger.
we're coming to you live from the dungeon. So we apologise for the dodgy lighting. Got to disguise work.
Yeah. And besides, we would be making too much of a statement if we put that much effort into our videos, and we want to keep it nice and homey.
We've got this beautiful green background, so who knows, we could pretend we're anywhere.
Yeah, well, it may not be a green background. We could be on, the plains of Tamriel. We could be in the Oblivion Plains. That'll be something.
That'll be magic.
More work for me.
Okay, well today we're here to talk about a topic dear to my heart and probably dear to your hearts, and that is what happens when your hero leaves your franchise.
Yeah. That is probably the saddest moment that you could face in a franchise. It's almost as bad as having a voice actor leave your franchise. It's sort of as if the character has gone.
Ceased to exist.
Yeah, ceased to exist. I'm not a fan of replacing characters. Even bigger, even more of an issue is when the main character, at least the one that you're interested in, leaves, and so there's really not much investment. We'll just wait so I can get that.
Aeroplane.
Just keep it silent, so then I've got the sound now, so I've got the profile. Carry on. That was a cut moment. I'm cutting that part out. An even bigger issue is when the main character leaves and there's very little investment to watch the franchise. Case in point, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Optimus Prime isn't in it for the whole movie, and I'm there wanting to watch Optimus Prime, and he's gone. So I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it in shows.
Which one did they get rid of Megan Fox? Because remember, she was like it.
Oh wait.
And there was 3, wasn't it?
Third
and
one.
then
They got rid
they
of
go,
her.
oh, she dumped me, and they got some weird Australian chick, and she was.
They
awful.
got rid of her on the third one because she made anti-Semitic comments about Michael Bay, and so they replaced her with another very attractive model who happened to be blonde this time. Fulfilled the same.
She did some weird tongue thing. She got mutated, I don't know.
No, that was a robot in Revenge of the Fallen. So yeah.
So,
what can you do?
So what we're talking about is we're not talking about where you get to say farewell to your characters. And so if it's a TV series which had a legitimate ending, like the final episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, you're saying goodbye and you feel fulfilled. We're not talking about when an actor sadly dies, like Andy Whitfield in Spartacus: Blood and Sand, and they had to get a new actor because he was dead. I'm talking like Richard Dean Anderson leaving at the end of Stargate before the final season. I'm talking The X-Files with David Duchovny deciding he had enough. I'm talking even 2.5 Men, where Charlie Sheen's had enough, and we get Ashton Kutcher. And so you have a series which was at its height, and the main character decides they have a dispute with management over pay or something like that, and they decide, I'm done. And yet, we're not done. The series is not over. It still requires to be finished, yet somehow they've got to try and finish it without their main asset.
I think that's an issue when a series has gone on for a long time. It's very clear when you're seeing the writing. When the main character leaves, when you lose all that investment, it reveals the inner mechanics of how these shows are made, and it almost ruins the immersion. It's like, an example of that would be in Vikings, where Ragnar Lothbrok, he dies, season 4, spoiler, and they replace him with a new cohort, all of his sons, and you think, well, I don't know these characters.
I don't care about the Vikings: The Next Generation.
Yeah, you've just replaced them, and there's no point for me. And so I stopped watching after he was, eaten by snakes was killed by the Britons. But I didn't really enjoy it. That and Transformers and the new Star Wars. Now Star Wars, I think, is the worst example of it, because what they should have done was continue the story of the older cohort. They should have kept Mark Hamill, they should have kept Princess Leia, they should have kept Harrison Ford, and instead what they did, they killed them off one by one in each film, and unfortunately Carrie Fisher's dead because of,
Will they give her a Paul Walker happily ever after? Because when he died before Fast and Furious 7, was it, ended, I thought, are they going to kill him off? And they did a really nice, touching farewell.
I think they're going to from what we know from all the leaks we know, and from what Star Wars, all the teasers they've been doing at D23, that they're reusing footage from the first Star Wars, and they're going to digitally enhance enhance it and just salvage what they can. Personally, I would prefer if she was replaced by a different actor. Because I feel that is justified. You know, get Meryl Streep. You know, Meryl Streep would be a great Princess Leia. Yeah, she's a bit taller, I think. You know, we don't know how tall actors are. We only see them on screen. We never see them in real life. But yeah, that would have been good. But that main cast, I have no interest in this new main cast because it was a bait and switch. Star Wars.
The bait and switch handover didn't do it for you.
And what made me even more angry was the latency in Ewan McGregor actually getting his movie. The fans were clamoring for that ever since Disney acquired the rights. Ever since they acquired Lucasfilms. Well, we're going to get an Obi-Wan film now. We're going to actually see that 5 years where he degenerates into an 80-year-old man.
Aged badly.
Yeah, we were going to see that. But yeah, Star Wars was probably the worst example of that.
I think if you look at the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, you thought, when that first came out, people were thinking, how on earth could you replace Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner and DeForest Kelly and all those famous actors playing these iconic characters? Yeah. I'm actually a fan of the J.J. Abrams Star Trek.
So am I.
And I think after seeing that in 2009, I just thought, hang on a sec. These characters, they've moved on from just being the actor. So Kirk and Spock and Bones exist now as characters that can be played by other actors. When Carl Urban played Bones and he did such a good job of Dr. McCoy, I just thought, you magnificent, I can't even say the word, bleep, but they did it. And I didn't think it was possible to, replace an iconic character with a different actor without it feeling just fake and artificial, but I was able to lose myself in those characters. And yet, look, I know they're not the original actors, but as an alternative universe, it was believable enough for me.
It's the James Bond effect, really. Yeah. They've created essentially legends that can be replayed. It's the same with the Joker now, where we're just clamouring for that Mark Hamill level, that Heath Ledger level performance, and those neutralities that are coming out.
Joaquin Phoenix.
He's really harkening back to that Heath Ledger performance. It's got a bit of the Killing Joke and Laughing Fish in it, but it's a type of role that can be reimagined as long as it's done well and it's sort of seen by Hollywood and by the fan base as a respected character that any actor can invest all their energy into. But I think in the case where character and actor are incredibly immersed, sort of melded together, personally, I would not want to see a different Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. He made that his own. Maybe in 20 years when we all have this understanding that he is an old man, he's unfit to act, he's on his deathbed, then we start looking and start
hand it over to
recasting.
someone else. Like, I'm not ready for a new Wolverine. Hugh Jackman is still Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
But there are certain characters where the baton can be handed over. Although, speaking of actors who sort of had enough of it, I want to go back to the X-Files because I finally started watching that event miniseries. So you've got the X-Files goes all the way through. The movie comes out back in sometime the mid to late 90s, and it doesn't answer quite everything. They're always teasing at this big event that's going to be happening when the truth is finally out there. And so then it limped on for a few more series, and David Duchovny got sick and tired of it, so he ended up with T-1000, Robert Patrick, replacing him as Agent Doggett. But
was this when he went to Californication?
He went a little bit after that. This is when he was trying to jump onto Hollywood films, which failed dismally. But he sort of grudgingly returned for the final episode, and it just was awful. That final episode of The X-Files just sucked so badly.
But what's bad about it, though?
It just did not give you what you wanted. It wasn't the big send-off. And the thing is, when the event miniseries came out in 2007 or 2009 or whatever it was, I've only just started watching it. It's 6 episodes, so I've watched the whole thing through, and I loved it. The pilot was called My Struggle, and they tell you everything. Basically, it's not aliens. The aliens came to Earth after World War II because they discovered we had nuclear capabilities and they wanted to protect us. The evil humans kill the aliens, steal their technology, and are using it against us. And when they're using this technology against us, they're masquerading as aliens because who's going to believe it? Oh, they're crazy people. You know, they're talking about UFOs and abductions, even though it's really happening.
Yeah.
And so I watched all that, and then I watched My Struggle Part 2. And it basically, it's all on, you know. The cigarette smoking man is the architect of doom, and they're wiping out humanity to
Is he played by Martin Sheen?
Nah, it's the same actor. It's the same actor. And so they're wiping out humanity to rebuild it in their own image. So it's like another militant Thanos Noah's Ark.
So the main actor returned for this.
All the main actors, every main actor has returned to the X-Files.
It's like they don't know what's good for them.
It's like it never went. And this is, in a way, reversing the evil of the final series. And it's back, and it's wonderful. And I know what you're saying. The end of My Struggle 2, this amazing situation that happens, it's actually just a dream. Scully's in a coma. It's meant to be like a premonition of the future. And that leads into X-Files Series 11. This is the latest one.
Oh my! So it ruined...
See, I'm watching My Struggle 2, and it's all happening, and I'm thinking, gee whiz, they are explaining and going through story, which took the best part of a decade, in half an hour. Slow down, slow down. And then suddenly I'm thinking, oh, gee, I've got to see, you know, this event special wasn't meant to be huge. It was only 6 episodes, but it's led into the next series, the most current series of the X-Files. And I thought, I have to stick in the first episode. I've got to see what happens, because basically they're all dying of this plague except for people who've been implanted with alien DNA. So Scully's safe because she was abducted and got the DNA put in her. David Duchovny's dying, so Mulder's dying, and there's a UFO, and they're thinking, we have to find our son because he's got alien DNA. And I'm like, what's going on? And then as soon as the next episode comes, it's Scully's in a coma. It's all a dream.
Is that a...
They're stretching it out again. They're stretching it out again. But... for a brief moment, as I was watching that event miniseries, it was like it's all been explained. And it's beautiful.
I think there's a good anti-example like that proves the same point, which is
an anti. You know what an anti-example is?
What's an anti-example?
Well, I don't know if it's an anti-example, but it's something. Remember Twilight? Have you seen the end of Twilight?
And I'm glad that I haven't been subjected to those films.
I said, what? Right in the middle of the cinema. Because what happens is, you've got the bad Martin Sheen Italian vampires who are like holding all the keys to these are the rules of how you should be a vampire. Yeah. And then you've got, you know, the Cullens and all that, and they've sort of broken these rules because a human and a vampire's had a baby and they want to kill it. And so the bad guys want to kill it and they want to save it.
I think that's
the werewolves and the good vampires versus the Italian mafia vampires. And they go at each other and they're ripping heads off. And everyone's dying, and main characters are dropping left, right.
And that's a dream, isn't it?
And it's a freaking premonition from the little girl. And when all the death had stopped and they went back in time to, oh, hang on, okay, this is the scene where they're all staring at each other about to do it. I was like, what? What? You just stole that from me.
So the anti-example, that would be annoying, and I would yell in the cinema. The anti-example I was talking about before the helicopter interrupted was... It's the Star Wars prequels, where when George Lucas sold the rights, he specifically said they could not remake the Star Wars prequels. And I think all the fans wanted those prequels to be retconned and to be made from the ground up again. You know, maybe salvage some of the actors like Ewan McGregor and Natalie Portman, who did, you know...
They did a good job.
Yeah, they're respectable actors, and I think most people would say, well, they're, you know... And Liam Neeson, they were... The good parts of the franchise. Hell, even Samuel L. Jackson, I don't think people have an issue with. I mean, he was too much like he's too much like Shaft in that role.
He was himself. Yeah, he wasn't like Mace Windu. He was just Samuel L. Jackson.
But how many people would want that sort of core cast, in particular Hayden Christensen, and just the silliness of the entire story, just to be revamped? I don't think people would have an issue.
Did they try that with the Clone Wars? Or was that too...
The Clone Wars, interestingly enough, it was almost like a reaction to all the fan outrage, where all these videos going up on YouTube about, you know, there's a famous series that would, it's got millions and millions of views, how Star Wars, you know, it's a series where this guy just rewrites the Star Wars prequels and gives them to you in these quick, you know, comic book strip style explanations. And Darth Maul losing half his body, that was an idea. Anakin turning to the dark side was a bit more. It was more fleshed out. There was more of a division. That division between the Jedi Council and Anakin, that was fleshed out over the films. Like it wasn't this instant turn at the end. And I think what people hated about it, one was the writing was awful. Two was that the main performance was awful. So anyone would have been happy.
It was very whiny, but all Skywalker's whiny apparently.
Yeah, but he is someone who is meant to have Mufasa's voice. He's meant to have the voice of Darth Vader, and this actor comes across as so pouty in his performance. He was just miscast. He needed someone.
He should have been older. He should have been older. When he turned into Vader, he shouldn't have been in his early 20s.
40.
He should have been, middle-aged guy. So
Yeah,
that's what you imagine.
Yeah, and I don't think he had the acting chops for it. And so that's just one example where I feel it's just horrible miscasting, and I think people would be happy when they changed. I mean, another example of that would have been when War Machine was recast. I don't think anybody battens to deny.
Terrence Howard?
Or Phillips, or whatever. The one who...
The guy from Fighting. Yeah, or anyway, I know. So he was in Iron Man 1, and then in Iron Man 2 was that when Don Cheadle came.
Yeah, Don Cheadle. I thought Don Cheadle fit in that role perfectly. But...
it's like Edward Norton no longer being Hulk, and that's Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, nobody cared about that.
Yeah.
About what I want to know from you is how do you feel because comic books change the characters all the time. They all have Thor's got a mantle of responsibility, so is Captain America, and now it's Falcon or the White Wolf now who's taken up the shield, and with Thor it's what's his name the alien with the long nose, razor something beak. I forget he could pick up the mantle. He was like an alien, and they did a little Easter egg in Thor Ragnarok where they had one of his faces on this sort of Mount Rushmore Colosseum. Yeah, it's those of you who've watched the film, you understand what I'm saying. I'm rambling over it. And like his girlfriend, and that being able to be Thor, like they do that all the time in comic books. And
They do.
I'd be annoyed, and it's not just that; it's powers being similar, like Wolverine.
The thing is, you end up with there can't be just one title, and so you look at the 1990s. There was half a dozen different Spider-Man titles, and all the different X-Men and things like that, and so it's almost like you have two versions of it. We hand over, we've got a new version, but the old version will limp on in their own version of the comic as well. It's like with Wolverine. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Old Man Logan, but now they sort of jump his age all over the place. They reboot the series and suddenly you've got young Wolverine back again. So I'm afraid continuity with comic books means absolutely nothing now. It did in the 90s, but ever since they just do new editions and new writers and new casts, continuity is only within that single volume. And the moment they go back to a new issue number 1, it doesn't matter. So I'm not as upset when they change comic book characters too much, because I know, let's face it, in this day and age,
it's got low value.
It'll last 20 issues and then you'll be back to where you are. But yeah, it's back to our main topic, which is about when your hero leaves your franchise and maybe you're not ready to see them go. It feels like unfinished business. I suppose we can't say that about the Marvel Universe, because the Marvel Universe, they did have a decent farewell. Tony Stark and Captain America, that was a good farewell.
But they're not even prepared to commit to it now, because there's all this talk about him coming back as an AI program, in the same way. And so,
Force Ghost.
Essentially a Force Ghost for Marvel films.
No, I think there comes a time when you've got to let it go. But then you got the situation with Spider-Man where they just reboot it, and you lose Tobey Maguire, you lose Garfield, and will we lose Tom Holland? It's
that for me, that's probably the truest example of the topic, which he literally left the franchise, which makes no sense, because you can't. For me, it's a dent in the Marvel Universe now, where it's sort of experiencing the same issues of continuity that you get with the comic books, which is one of the reasons I don't. I'm not going to go into a comic book. I used to read a lot of manga, but because they carried on and on and on, and they were so drawn out, and there was discontinuity, you had filler arcs that would clash. There's so much pruning that needed to take place that I couldn't commit to it. And this is just one example of that, very similar to all the discontinuity in X-Men, which is, how can you justify a character just leaving out of nowhere? How are they going to write him out? And then at the same time have a tangential, adjacent plot line which will probably conflict, in many ways with what's going on in the Marvel universe. I mean, the Marvel films are so vast. Like, how can they guarantee that something that Sony's going to publish isn't going to clash? And so that, I feel, is just even worse.
It's an unhappy marriage. So for some characters, we refer to the past. For other characters, we don't think about those films. Spider-Man, according to the Marvel Universe, Spider-Man is only Tom Holland. It's not Tobey Maguire and Garfield. We forget about them.
I'm saying the Tom Holland ones now, the films they're going to make in the future may potentially clash. They may have, they may have Dr. Octavius in New York, and they may have another New York sequence, and you have to have some type of internal coherency in the narrative, and if that's able to happen, and the Marvel universe is vulnerable to those types of inconsistencies, I wouldn't, and who knows, Sony may want to do that just to egg them on. Hey, take our 30% deal, take that back. They may want to prod them like that, but in terms of the main topic of the characters, I still can't return to a franchise unless there's a serious justification for it.
Can they be written out well?
I haven't seen it.
Like a soap opera, like. Okay. Actually, you know what?
Oh, wait,
I was thinking about another example. When Ron Moss left The Bold and the Beautiful, and Ridge, who was like in the very first episode, is gone. They replaced him with another guy. And he just wasn't Ron Moss. But occasionally you'll see an episode and it's like, okay.
Power Rangers. It's like Power Rangers. You have the Red Power Ranger you've got the Blue Power Ranger leading the team, then the Red Power Ranger comes in, and you think, you know what, I didn't like you. The Blue Power Ranger was the leader. It's that same feeling. I don't appreciate it. One example where I felt like it does work is when you do not reboot a franchise, but you take the setting so far away from where the original season or series has taken place, with a whole new set of characters. Star Wars is not an example of that, because the main cast still existed in that world, and that's what was so infuriating. Is that if they went back to the Old Republic, that would make sense. But they didn't do that. They chose to continue the storyline. But one of the shows when I was watching was the Avatar series, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Avatar: The Legend of Korra, which was another series of episodes. And they went about, I'd say, 50, 60, maybe 70 years into the future, where most of the cast were dead. A couple survived. They came in supporting.
Can't meddle with the legacy.
Yeah, but even then, there was tension in the fan base. Why don't we get to see this character more? Why aren't these characters here helping with this issue? It created a lot of strain because it wasn't believable. You can't sell us a cast of characters that are these underdogs that are, for want of a better word, Guardians of the Galaxy, and then have them go, MIA for 50 episodes. It's just.
You know what it is? The whole situation could be avoided. If they just end things sooner. A TV series is not meant to go for 10 seasons. Sometimes, you've got to respect the Jerry Seinfeld decision, where even though everyone wanted him to make more Seinfeld, he said, you know what, this is the last episode. We're going to quit on a high before people get sick of us. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to end things. And when, your main cast is getting sick of it and deciding they want to quit, it's past its use by date.
Ricky Gervais is very good at that. How many episodes were there of the original Office? 15, 12, I don't remember. And then he went and he did extras, and that was a 3-season show, finished. And then he went and he did some other projects which maybe weren't as good.
They leave you wanting more.
Yeah, but it left you wanting more, and so. But there was a finality to it, and there was a story to it. So many shows, when you do watch them, previously, and I do think this is a result of Netflix and HBO actually releasing high quality drama, but previously you would get shows that would just continue on and on and on, and the drive wasn't narrative, the drive wasn't an interesting story, well perhaps an interesting story, but the drive was more the money, but character, that's what brought the audience. And so if your only hook is character and then you change the main character, I think those shows are less likely
They won't succeed.
They won't succeed. 2.5 Men. It would be a good.
That was
example.
Charlie Sheen's vehicle.
Yeah, that was Charlie Sheen. Yeah.
Who really cared about John Cryer and the kid?
Yeah, nobody.
Oh,
Yeah,
and Ashton Kutcher. Oh,
nobody cared about it.
pitiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
I think we're done. Over and out. Subscribe.
Prime Zinger out. Prime Zinger out. There we go. I got it. That was good. Rough landing, but we got it.